trying to be as dispassionate, objective here as possible. You've heard the ranking members of the committee and the subcommittee indicate to you that it wasn't necessarily the best practice to release the draft of this bill the day before the July 4th weekend when Congress was not in session. It's our desire, everyone's desire here, to come up with a bill that's the best bill that we can give to the committee, understanding that and understanding that sometimes there is a choice that you have to make between doing things fast and doing things right. And having heard the arguments that were made, will the Chairman consider a one-week recess for this markup? I'll yield to the Chair. Reclaiming my time, I do want to point out that the Manager's Amendment was, in fact, released just a few days ago. And, in fact, the two amendments that I'm offering today are premised upon specific changes that were made from the original draft and what we were given on July 3rd. So I think there were material changes that were made. I don't think you would dispute that because you were the one who made those changes. So with that in mind, I would prefer to see us proceed in a manner where every member of the committee feels that they've been given the proper time to give their input and make this bill the best that it can be. Reclaiming my time, the price that you all pay for doing this way is that you haven't earned the cooperation of the minority. That may mean something to you and may not. We both know that it's going to be very hard to get any bill passed through the Senate, any bill actually signed into law when you're not making it a bipartisan bill, but rather a partisan bill. It seems to me to be a small price to pay for the chance of making this a bipartisan bill to simply postpone this proceeding for 1 week. There's nothing in this bill that is time sensitive. This is a bill that could have been introduced 3 months ago, 6 months ago, could be introduced 6 months from now. It's not as if hurricanes are going to go away in the meantime, or tornadoes. So again, with the possibility that we might be able to make this a bipartisan bill, I have to ask you once more, and this will be the last time, I promise, that we postpone these proceedings for 1 week in order to try to make this a bipartisan bill. I don't think anybody's suggesting that nobody did anything since the 3rd of July. In fact, Ms. Bonamici has introduced 4 amendments that were produced since July 3rd, and I've introduced 2. That's not the same as saying that we've had enough time to thoroughly go over this and make this the best bill that it can be. The text that we were working from was something that was given to us on July 3rd. I don't need to tell you what happened on July 4th. July 6th and 7th were a weekend, and this is the first full day back where we're back in session after a week-long recess. I don't think that one can do one's best legislating under those conditions. I'm not saying that your office couldn't. I am saying that our office had to extend itself to do what we were able to do by today. Probably Ms. Bonamici feels the same way. That's the sentiment that she expressed. And what's the rush? But in any event, I understand your point, and I guess we can proceed.
Some of the concerns that have been raised about the timing, and just so, not to be defensive, but I want to explain that there were calls in to talk with staff. The markup was scheduled on July 3rd for today. And of course, as Mr. Grayson has explained, July 4th was a holiday, and then we had a weekend intervening. The concern isn't just with our staff cooperating with each other, which I hope will continue to do. The concern is that with a lot of these amendments and with this legislation, it's important to get the input of the weather community. We want to make sure that we have a bill that addresses the real needs out there to improve weather forecasting, and that it's also workable and effective for the stakeholders involved. So it isn't just our staffs needing to communicate with each other, even though it was a holiday weekend. It's getting input from the people who will be implementing this legislation that's important as well. And I just wanted to explain that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I had not planned to speak on this, but I have to tell you that in reviewing Mr. Grayson's amendment, understanding that it may be accepted by the majority, it is case in point why it was necessary to review this and to move forward. We would not have actually had to do an amendment had we had the kind of bipartisan cooperation that the ranking member spoke about earlier. And so looking at Mr. Grayson's amendment and seeing something as simple as adding such as hurricanes and tornadoes, that the American public would have been shocked that we would have been able to move forward a bill without an amendment that wouldn't recognize that we had these kind of severe storms, given what this country and what parts of this country have experienced. And so I just want to echo the concern that sometimes moving fast does not always produce the best result, and this just happens to be one example of that, although I am supportive of the amendment. And with that, I yield.